It's a tradition here at Digital Europe. We talk about connectivity, of course, every year because, as the title says, it's one of the foundations of the digital economy. We also refer to it as the backbone quite often because it's one of those things where if you don't have connectivity and good connectivity, leading connectivity, not much can happen. In fact, nothing can happen. One of the good things that we've been looking at Digital Europe, we have this broader agenda about Europe's competitiveness, of course. And connectivity happens to be one of the areas where Europe leads globally. It leads in research, it leads in standardization, leads in network equipment. So it is an area where we are leaders globally. But we do have challenges, and of course we don't only want to talk about challenges in this conference. We're geared toward the solutions, but the challenges are largely around scale. We still have a very fragmented market across 27 countries. The lack of a single market means that we don't have the scale in terms of the size of operators, the size of investments that other continents have. And we've been looking at these problems and trying to address them, both in the market and through policymaking, to make sure that we achieve the KPIs that we and the institutions, I think, fully agree we should be reaching by 2030 and beyond. So gigabit connectivity and coverage, 5G, leading in the development and deployment of 6G as soon as we can. So we have a lot of common objectives, and right now we are at the beginning of a new policy cycle as well, where we have a new full proposal, full revision of the telecoms regulatory framework that tries to look at a lot of these problems. So I'm very happy to have experts and policymakers and from industry that have been very familiar with these debates through the years, and a lot of historical perspective as well. And they're also leading the future development of the technology and the policy framework. So with that, because we're talking about policy, I'll go to Peter and then the Commission first. The Commission just effectively very recently put forward a proposal for a Digital Networks Act, DNA, so it doesn't get more foundational than that. And in many senses, it's both a continuation of telecoms regulation as we know it, but it's also an evolution. Would you want to explain to the audience the main elements of what the Commission is trying to do and what's different in the DNA that we don't currently have?
With pleasure. Many thanks, Alberto, for the invitation to join the panel. Really pleasure to be here. Indeed, there's need for change. The program also of this conference illustrates, I think, what happens around us. Digital infrastructures are really becoming center stage. Technology is changing fast. Ecosystems are changing, so networks are becoming AI and cloud-based. They're also enabling the AI economy. On the other side, infrastructure is getting more critical, so we need to respond to risks and threats, and also to reduce our dependencies. So what are now, based on that context, let's say, of change, the game changers of the DNA? First, maybe a word on simplification. So I think what we did here is, if you look at it from the legal system, from like actually 27 sets of rules to one rule book, right? And integrating the relevant frameworks that we have in the area of digital networks. So the code, BEREC regulation, spectrum program, and open internet in principle. So this means harmonization of the rules, because we're now moving to a world where the rules are directly applicable. And also then, of course, the opportunity to streamline rule by rule, to simplify, to see what is a bit outdated, what are new challenges. So this is a bit this omnibus-like exercise to go through the provisions and really simplify. What then fits with that, if we then have one harmonized landscape of rules, is then the passport system. I think it's quite important to set the scene here for the opportunity to operate in the single market. So you to notify once, and then in principle you have the right to provide your services EU-wide. Satellite, we even went one step further. Here we centralized it at EU level, the authorization and also the spectrum selection. So this is, of course, even more evident because the footprint of satellite networks are, by definition, cross-border. Then what is new on the side of investment, what is here important is really the predictability. both on the side of the spectrum, where we say spectrum assignment, needs to be best practice in Europe. Member states still stay in charge of the decisions, but we coordinate and make sure that investment-friendly conditions are applied. Transition to fiber, the same, very predictable roadmaps, and also the rules that fits with it, more predictable. Innovation, quick word on that. Very important, of course, to set the senior for specialized services to provide the clarity. Here we have a mechanism, and also on the cooperation of the ecosystem to make it as smooth as possible, and also have here efficiency and fast procedures and not long litigation, and also support fast partnerships and cooperation. Finally, a word on resilience. Security has been moved out of the code, but what is very important, of course, in resilience, to have an EU perspective on availability on the one side, but what is new here is also the notion of capabilities. So when we have crisis, it's not only the challenge to keep the networks available, but also to be able to respond and maybe use the networks more. So this is important, and then also to have the plan at EU level, a preparedness plan, and to know what to do if the major crisis would happen, and to be prepared, and also have the protocols to act. So these are the main ingredients of change, if you want, that fit together to deliver on competitiveness and resilience. And of course, we hope to keep this ambition now. I feel very well surrounded. I'm going to the council after this meeting, but we also have Pilar del Castillo here, who will be in the rapporteur team, and I think really looking forward to keep this ambition and move this to the next level.
Thanks a lot, Peter. It's quite bizarre because you talked rightly, you said that security has been moved out of the code, but in many ways, this code, so to speak, is the most security inclined that I've seen so far, and we'll have a cyber panel right after this one in the coffee break, so we'll explore this there as well. But Pilar, you are the queen of telecoms in the Parliament. You have seen it all. You have seen all the reforms that we've done through the years, and what Peter has been describing must be speaking to you quite a lot and generating a lot of thoughts already. Of course, you've seen the proposal. We'll be working on it. But let's talk about the market. So the single market aspect of it. One of the ambitions, of course, is to create that scale. Peter talked about a few things like the single passport, which we'll get back to. From your perspective, how does it look? Is this a major step in moving toward this pan-European network that we all dream about and that we've been trying to create for a number of years now?
Okay, thank you very much. First, thank you very much for this invitation and the opportunity to be here in this very timely debate. Well, let me say to start that something that we all know, that will be not data-driven economy, no competitive cloud ecosystem and AI industry without a single market. We're scaling, investing, and growing across borders. So that's the setting in which we have to move, because it's not impossible. And we should have in mind that we will not solve this challenge through a siloed approach, which is very common in many of the regulations coming from the European Union. In this context, connectivity is crucial for the single market. The DNA will play, in my view, should play a role in strengthening it, boosting competitiveness, and enabling innovation. In the proposed regulation by the Commission, we find good examples in this direction. Let me just mention some. We are going to overlap in a little bit because some of them are so obvious that I also have to mention it. For example, the single passport regime, I think it has a great potential, but only if we ensure that it does not become an additional layer for compliance on the top of the existing obligation. That is something that happens very frequently, and so this must be avoided. Some simplification. In general terms, simplification is the mantra of this legislative term. But it's a mantra, but it must move to a reality. And then this happens in all regulation, but in this particular one is key for the single market. The DNA proposal introduces harmonized framework for information requests and reduce duplication and unnecessary administrative burden. And I think this is exactly in the right direction. And then we come to spectrum policy, which always was, a barrier that we couldn't go through. That was very complicated every time that we review the framework for the electronic communication sector to really go further, in terms of better coordination, high coordination, not to say harmonization. And in this case, I think this is where the ambition of the Commission is more visible. The DNA proposes a more strategic and coordinated European approach to spectrum management, among other measures, and I think this is very important, the automatic authorization renewal of licensing will incentivize, of course, because this decision, investment on standalone 5G and 6G, and on the other hand, enabling key capacities such as network slicing. I think it's important the consideration of the geopolitical dimension of a spectrum. I think it's very necessary and timely. I have to mention, because always the area related to the fair share. A level playing field. The Commission proposed a voluntary conciliation. This is going to be very controversial among different sectors. But in any case, when we debate in Parliament, we have to be sure that the mechanism finally chosen should after the legislative process, of course, we must ensure that it does not evolve into 27 national systems. And finally, let me reference to satellite connectivity, because satellite connectivity has not been present in the debates, I have to say, until the Ukraine war, at least in Parliament. Probably the Commission inside the debate before, but in a strong manner until then. The proposal introduces a more harmonized approach to satellite connectivity with the introduction of the Union-level general authorization for the provision of satellite networks and satellite communication services, and the Union authorization for the use of satellite spectrum. I think this is really a sector which is decisive for many different reasons. It covers the big part of the planet. It is really in those hands of the satellite connectivity. So, and I finish here. It is clear that the internal market it's a dream. It's kind of dream that we always debate, and there are always a lot of reluctances from member states and from different sectors. But I think this is an opportunity we cannot miss. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Pilar. You covered practically everything, so I don't know what's left to say on the panel. Okay, so I'll go to Audrey. Qualcomm has been a leader in subsequent generations of particularly mobile connectivity. One of the shifts that we've seen for a number of years, which is continuing, is the move to edge. Cloud has been increasingly part as well of the stack. And when you look at Europe and specifically the situation now, what needs to change, how do you look at it? What's going on? What do you want to happen?
Many things. Thanks for the question, and very happy to be with you today. I would say that probably the first thing we would like to see in Europe is scale. Scale, and we see Europe as like the heart of innovation. We were discussing together yesterday and this morning about the brain that we have in Europe and all the capacity and R&D we do have in Europe. And what is very important for us as well is to continue to innovate. If we don't innovate as Qualcomm, we just die. I know it's a horrible word, but that's just the reality of the markets. So anything we can do as Qualcomm with our ecosystem to help to build this scale, DNA being a very right step in this direction. There are many other ways building the ecosystem, but what is probably more important is doing our best in avoiding the fragmentation that we are seeing, so really making the digital market a reality. What I'm saying is very basic, but that's just what we need in Europe, and we're very happy to engage and continue pushing this agenda forward. Otherwise, the outcome will not be positive. So what we do need is to continue to do what we do, but just avoid fragmentation and acceleration. Just to give you an example, you mentioned the Gs. 6G is coming very soon. And we will do demo of the technology for the Olympics. I know that we just closed Cortina. Soon it's going to be LA. But we're going to have some demo for Los Angeles. So stay tuned. It's going to be super interesting. The last thing I would like to say as well about what do we need is to strongly maintain the intellectual property system that we have built in Europe, which is the gold standard for many countries. And we really need to put this like a high standard. So I would like to say, less fragmentation, scale, keep the IP, and continue to build the partnership that we are doing all together with a number of players, including with Jaime.
Very good. Thanks a lot, Audrey. So, Jaume, perfect segue. And I'm very pleased to have you on the panel of all people, because you are the winner of our dual-use technology award just yesterday out of Spain. One of the unicorns, the innovators that we want to see more of here in Europe. And you are pioneering efforts to bring 5G narrowband Internet of Things to devices, standard commercial devices that are out there using satellites. And this is a new space. We just discussed, both Peter and Pilar mentioned that for the first time, satellites are part and parcel of the telecoms framework. So there is clearly a pathway toward more integration of satellites into commercial connectivity networks. Describe perhaps a little bit what you do, why is it so important, and where do you see your solutions being integrated in the broader commercial solutions that people are buying?
Then, Peter, what we have been doing till today is developing a satellite constellation that allows to connect 5G IoT devices. This means the democratization of connectivity, of digitalization, because since today, if you want to connect something in the middle of nowhere, in places where there is no terrestrial connectivity, you need to buy a satellite device. A satellite device means hundreds of euros. With our solution, a €5 device, the same that all the mobile operators are using today, it can be connected in the middle of nowhere. This is very important because it means not just complements, but it delivers resilience to the terrestrial networks. In case of last year, unfortunately, we got the floods in Valencia, or we got some fires in Aragon, where terrestrial infrastructure was absolutely damaged. Then when you have no terrestrial, because you are in the middle of nowhere, or when this is damaged, you still have the satellite connectivity in order to deliver this. Then at the same time, it allows Europe to have autonomy, sovereignty. This is very important. We all know that it's useless to say that Ukraine, it's Europe. And nobody doubts that we need connectivity, sovereign connectivity in Ukraine in order to take our own decisions on where we have and where we have not. We cannot depend on third parties for this. And of course, it's important for we are now developing the second generation of satellites. This second generation of satellites, it allows us to connect not only 5G IoT, but also the new 5G new radio. We just today announced that we have done a test with Qualcomm in the Paris lab, connecting our payload directly to our 5G new radio. This means voice, video, and wideband data directly from our satellites. These have both uses, civil, but most important, even security and defense. To have this capacity worldwide, give Europe full autonomy. And of course, we are going toward not just the complementary, but the integration. EV networks are the ones that we are designing. That means that you start having a phone call with terrestrial, and we finish it with satellite, or you go to satellite to terrestrial in a very, in absolute seamless way.
Thanks a lot, Jaume. You mentioned security and defense as well. Obviously, you won the dual use award, so that's no coincidence. And Pilar, you mentioned quite often in Parliament as well the links with energy and the security of energy grids. One interesting thing is that the proposal for the DNA was announced on the same day as a package with the review of the Cybersecurity Act, where the security and security of supply chain is being dealt with more extensively there. Do you think that we're in a moment where we're starting to see these different types of grids and networks more together in terms of the impact of vulnerabilities and their security aspect side of things, and we're starting to be more coherent about how we go about it?
Mm-hmm. Well, the first thing I have to say is that the energy system now is structured around deeply interconnected layers. Electricity networks rely on ICT infrastructure for real-time control. Gas transmission depends on compressor stations powered by electricity. Market functioning depends on data availability, and so on and so forth. And there is more. The energy system increasingly, and I have to say also for the satellite, relies on satellite-based services. GNSS for grid synchronization, satellite telecommunications to connect remote stations, Earth observation for forecasting demand and renewable generation. So there's a clear picture of interdependence, regulatory and resilient efforts that are there. But the problem is that they are focused, that they are, the efforts tend to focus on isolated segments. In my view, what is needed, in order to align all this, I think first, sector-specific cybersecurity standards, which is a problem. I mean, NIST directive, Cyber Resilience Act, provides a number of principles and obligations, but there is not a dedicated sector-specific schemes for any sector, and then we need it. Second, integrated risk assessment and regulatory alignment. While each regulatory instrument has strong internal logic, that is true, the overall framework reveals areas of misalignment. We are talking about the NIS2, as I said, the Cyber Resilience Act, the Cyber Security Act. So the most persistent challenge is isolated regulation, so we have to really solve as well this problem. Third, incentives for system resilience. We must create the right condition to enable continued investment, among other things, AI-driven grid management systems, enabling real-time predictive congestion control, digital twins of critical energy infrastructure, providing high-fidelity simulation, cyber physical threats, satellite-based monitoring of energy infrastructure, and edge computing, of course, in smart grids, enabling decentralized decision-making, micro-segmentation, a rapid fault isolation at networks level. Well, all in all, this connection, this interconnection between energy and digital techs, I think is there. It is quite, has evolved quite much, but there is, at the level of the European Union, also a lack of a single market in reality.
Thanks a lot, Pilar. We also have, very briefly, a Slido survey, just to involve our audience, about the strategic choices that matter most for Europe between now and 2030. And you see 4 options. Please go through them and vote online, and we'll see what the results are at the end of the panel. Peter, one of the things you mentioned is the single passport. Okay, so this is a great idea that's been around. Right now, we're doing it. It's a great first step and one-stop shop in terms of telecoms. You'd have operators able to function in multiple member states, subject to one main authority, and then residual powers only available to other authorities. I know we're not supposed to talk about problems, but we know that in this space and other areas, including spectrum, one of the elephants in the room is national powers, and are member states ready to concede that these things should happen more at European level or at a cross-continental scale as opposed to nationally under their purview? So how do you see the reaction so far, and how are we going to get member states to get there?
No, it's always good to anticipate problems. Of course, we did that also in the last few months and years already. We worked quite a lot with member states on council conclusions, where they also provided a lot of feedback to our consultations. So we saw a bit what would be the line. I mean, what they would be worried about certainly is you go to something that is called country of origin. If you would have different sets of rules with different levels of requirements, and then providers could forum shop, so they could just go to one side where maybe certain requirements are not sufficiently respected from a perspective from one or the other member states. So that's a bit behind. So we thought quite intensively how to come up with a balanced solution here, also together with BEREC experts, so really upstream work was done. So our solution is indeed quite pragmatic. So as Alberto said, notification in only one member state, authorization valid in all member states, so that's the first one side of the story, right? Then the list of conditions for authorization are fully harmonized. That's already taking, of course, is a very important basis to be comfortable with this scheme. But then, of course, we would have still EU law or even national law if we talk about areas of security or law enforcement, which are not part of the DNA, which are then still national and also enforceable national. So we foresee here a role for the home member state from an authorization perspective, but in terms of day-to-day enforcement, still very much the enforcement, of course, at local level, which is also necessary. You can imagine consumer complaints, you can think about access schemes. So here, of course, it's not the home member state to oversee all that. So it's only when it comes to the freedom to provide business, if this would be challenged, if there would be some non-compliance in this area, then the home member state would be involved, while still also keeping some flexibility for the member states of service in case of urgencies or risks. So indeed, the devil will be in the detail to find the exact final solution here, but we think it can be found. It's, at the end of the day, I think more a matter of member states also to, in general, not only in authorization, to adjust their legal system to a single market approach, as Pilar rightly mentioned. So this has been always a bit the issue. Of course, we think it's now better understood. We have also, in terms of objectives behind, more justification. It would mean adjusting procedures, harmonize certain rules. So this will be the challenge at the end of the day. Are member states ready and open to make this investment to move to the single market approach? So here again, we count on the member states to embrace these objectives, and also then on the Parliament side, we really feel a lot of support. When we talk about single market, this will be really key to keep this ambition.
Thanks a lot, Peter. Jaume, so in a sense, you're in a very privileged position because, again, satellite is already global in many ways. You don't suffer from the fragmentation that we've seen so far to the same extent when it comes to terrestrial telecoms networks. But you clearly have an ambition to scale across Europe in particular, and to scale your business and to scale your customer base. What have been the challenges you've seen so far? What challenges do you expect, and what do you need to solve them?
The main challenge on the regulatory aspect are fragmentation. To test the new satellites, we have a 6-month license in Finland, 1-year license in Spain, commercial license in Germany, absolutely crazy. Okay, we have to go one by one asking, and each one has a different framework in order to get this type of license. This is number one, with no doubt. We need because satellites does not understand about frontiers. Okay, they fly over Europe, and Europe, the countries are too small, okay, to go one by one and to get this approval. This is the main regulatory aspect. In the financial aspect, of course, what we need is long-term vision. The satellite, the space in general, it's a multi-year investment. You cannot decide today that you are going to launch tomorrow. Then I believe that the best tool to achieve that is use public demand and procurement. We don't want money. What we want is contracts that allow us to be a sustainable company. We don't want to be a subsidized company. We want to be a super competitive, a global competitive company. And this, the way to have it is to put in the table, okay, we are going to buy all these services that we need at a market price. And I'm sure that we may be as competitive as the US or Chinese companies.
Thanks a lot, Jaume. Long-term vision you mentioned, and Audrey, we discussed already 6G a little bit, but clearly that's part of a long-term investment funnel that's been happening. Qualcomm has been part of the value chain that's been developing 6G, and there's a very healthy, as I said at the beginning, European component of that ecosystem that's developing 5G, 6G, and the future of the evolution of networks and devices. Where do you see Europe now, and how do you see Europe contributing to this evolution, and how is it looking from your perspective?
Thanks for the question, and I understand that we need to be brief, but I think I see a lot of complementarity and synergies on the development of AI. I know that many people are saying that maybe Europe missed the boat again. I'm seeing it from a different perspective. I think I mentioned the talent part already, so we've got the brain. I think there are a lot of opportunities as well with the industrial base that we do have in Europe, whether this is the automotive sector, whether this is energy, whether this is the fashion industry. So there are a lot of opportunities that we can see as well with the industrial base. And I see as well this kind of combination of, I would say, I know that there are a lot of discussion on sovereignty right now, but I see a lot of synergies about a hybrid, I would say hybrid 6G, hybrid AI that we will see between everything that is in the cloud and as well everything that is going in the edge. So I think here in Europe, we do have everything to really lead on this new wave of innovation. I give you another example on 6G because on the MoD that we have seen yesterday and today, the way we understand 6G, and it's still work in progress, so we will see what will happen in the future, but it's going to be it's going to not be just a continuation of 5G technology. It's going to be a new constellation of services that would be created. So as an example, the network is going to become a sensor. So the network could monitor, okay? So that's as well something to look into. But the network could become as well a massive amount of new business opportunity for the entertainment industry. And we have strong base here in Europe. So this technology is going to create massive, I would say, investment in synergies for the future. So I'm very optimistic.
Thanks a lot, Audrey. I'm afraid this is all the time we have. We try to do panels that are 40 minutes long, and unfortunately the topics are so interesting that we could go on, but we have to stop. So thank you, all four of you, for contributing a lot to this panel. I'm sure we'll continue, and next year we'll have another connectivity panel. You're all invited. Of course. Let's see what the poll brought up in terms of results. We had 63 people voting. That's okay. And clearly, the winner by far is moving from national markets to a European market for telecoms, connectivity, cloud, edge. So it sounds like our audience wants this as much as everybody on the panel. Let's reconvene in a year, as we say usually, and let's see if we can make it happen. Thanks a lot.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well done.
Thanks a lot. Very nice.